Hello, hello, hello. I don't know why I did that. Hello, 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 beautiful souls, and welcome to Stella Rose Divine. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. We're just going to have a wee chat. I'm just going to talk to you guys about some things that I've realised over the last couple of weeks that I think are super valuable, super, they blew my mind, so hopefully they blow yours too. So I'm going to start with a wee story time. So when I was growing up, when I was in high school, I had really bad social anxiety. I had this idea of who I'm supposed to be, and I had to fit it, and if I didn't fit it, and if I thought people thought that what I said was weird, it wasn't good enough. So I had this social anxiety, and I believed that I had to be what people thought I should be, and if I wasn't perceived as, if I believed that I was being perceived in a certain way, then it wasn't good enough. I really put my value into what other people saw me as, which is really weird because my value comes from me being me. Anyway, and so everything I did was so calculated, and I was constantly thinking about how people perceived me and whether or not they thought that what I was doing was attractive, and if it wasn't, then I would try to change it, not just like internally, physically. That's how it was in high school. Anyway, so I was so used to the idea of being socially anxious that over time, as I became more confident with who I am, I still thought that I was afraid to talk to people. And it wasn't until this past weekend where I stopped telling myself I'm anxious and just let myself be that I realized I didn't give two flying fucks what people thought of me. And I could just be myself. And I wasn't actually anxious at all. Anxiety, social anxiety, comes from the idea, the fear of how I'm going to be perceived by others. I dropped that fear of how people perceive me a while ago, but I was still acting as if I was afraid because I was so used to it. And then that weekend was the weekend that truly hit me, where I was like, oh shit, I'm having conversations with all these different people about random things, going all over the place, and it's totally fine and fair and fun. We're laughing, they're laughing, nobody cares. If somebody's bothered by the way that I'm talking, that's not my problem. I mean, of course, I'm talking about like, if I want to come from a place of love. I don't want to be harmful in how I'm talking. But if somebody's bothered by, if they're like, oh my god, this person's not interesting, okay, cool, go find somebody else to talk to then. It's that simple. And when I realized that, I was no longer afraid to talk to people. And what this made me realize, because I spent so long trying to make myself fit into this mold, this idea of what is attractive, of how people will perceive me in a positive way, how I can be positive all the time, how I can be funny, how I can do this, how I can do that. And I would just constantly go through my head this checklist of what I should be doing and how I should be perceived. And if I didn't do that, then I would beat myself up afterwards. It was a really toxic and a really unpleasant cycle to be stuck in. And like I'd meet somebody else, I'm like, fuck, they're funny, I want to be like that. And then I went through phases. I really did not used to swear at all because I thought I was gentle. I wanted to be soft and I wanted to be delicate and I wanted to be feminine. I really thought that was who I was. Like I was so convinced that I was that person. And don't get me wrong, I'm a perfectly gentle person. I'm a perfectly kind person. And there are times where I do feel like soft. But there are other times where I'm fucking passionate and fiery, and swearing actually gets me going because it's this way to express myself. And I am expressive, and over times I stopped expressing myself in the ways that I used to because I thought that that was perceived as like a bad thing or an over the top thing. I didn't realize at the time that the reason that this was even perceived negatively was because I wasn't accommodating for their energy. And in a society where we are taught to be a certain way and that that's how we are perceived as attractive, we aren't taught how to be ourselves. And so when I was being myself, that was seen as a negative thing. And so all through my childhood and all through high school, whenever I was myself, it was pretty quickly shot down. And so over time, I learned that myself wasn't good enough. And now, looking back, I have realized that it has nothing to do with being good enough. It has nothing to do with my worth. It has nothing to do with how people perceive me. It has everything to do with how they perceive themselves. So when I was a child and I hadn't learned that people hide who they are to fit in, and I was just being myself, and others had already learnt that people hide in the society. I was triggering them. I was mirroring back in them what they didn't want to acknowledge in themselves, which is that they didn't feel free to be themselves. And so I was being myself. They weren't used to that. They didn't understand that they didn't feel like they could be themselves. And so I was like the picked on one. And through high school as well. And so eventually I changed. And then after I changed, people were like, wow, you're so much better now. You're so much cooler now. We like you more. People started to like me. You know, people had crushes on me. All that kind of shit. Because I started to be more attractive. I started to be how they wanted me to be. I started thinking and worrying about how people perceived me. And I started calculating and determining my actions around other people's thoughts. And that was celebrated. When I was myself, that was shut down. And when I was being somebody that other people wanted me to be, that was celebrated. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm doing it. I'm succeeding at life. I was fucking miserable. And this is so sad that we live in a society where we are taught that to be yourself is bad, to be expressive is bad, to be somebody that makes other people feel comfortable, that accommodates for other people, being a people pleaser is good. We are taught to be people pleasers. We are taught to care about what people think of us, and we are taught to hide our emotions. All these things that are completely distorted energetic frequencies that are completely damaging for our well-being. This is why there is such a huge skyrocketing statistic of mental health, because we are taught these things that are so incredibly damaging for us. And then because we are taught these things, and there is no shame here, when we see somebody doing this, when we see somebody being expressive in themselves, and we have been taught to hide ourselves, the hurt aspect of us, the rejected truth within us, sees that and gets hurt because they see what they currently don't have. And because of that, and we don't recognize that this is what is happening, we see that as weird, we see that as different, dangerous, bad, negative, needs to be killed, a bitch, whatever it is. I don't mean physically killed, by the way, I mean like the spirit. And, we may pick on them, or we may reject them, or we may judge them. Again, no shame in that. And that is because the inner aspect of us that has been rejected sees themselves in that. And they see what they can't have. And so they reject that. Because they're unable to acknowledge in themselves. And so the cycle continues because they don't recognize in themselves that this is something that is actually hurting them, and then we teach each other this lesson of fitting in, and before you know it, everybody is hiding who they are. And so that's what I was doing. I was hiding who I was, and I was being called attractive for it. I was being called more likable. I had people who didn't like me starting to like me, saying things like, yeah, we used to think you were weird, but now you're really cool. Fuck that. Absolutely fuck that. I obviously pushed all that to the side eventually when I started to realize this. But I realized the people who were mean to me, the people who made me feel like shit for being myself, they just didn't understand that they were afraid to be themselves, and so when I was myself, they wanted to snuff that light out. And the reason I'm sharing this story with all of you is because we live in a society where attractiveness is a mold that we have to fit. And to fit it, we have to hide who we truly are. And we are taught that yes, being attractive is good. Fitting in is good. Being yourself is bad, especially if you're a little bit different to the rest of us. And we're all different. We just don't know it because everybody's fitting this mold at the moment. And so I just want to ask you guys something. Do you ever go around and think, is this person going to find me attractive? Is this person going to think this is attractive? What do I have to do in order? Like, what about that concept of the first date? How you make yourself look pretty or how you clean yourself up. And of course, I'm not saying, like, of course it's good to take care of yourself, but you hide little things about yourself. You're scared of coming on too strong. You're scared of being too expressive. You're scared of scaring them away. So you hide these things about yourself. And then over time, you become more comfortable. It's this kind of idea that we have to fit in a certain way in order to be attractive that is so damaging. And I want to just share something with all of you that I realized. What we find attractive, what society deems attractive, it's just like when I was being bullied because I didn't fit in because I was myself. It's the same thing. What we find attractive is what we find comfortable. It is what we find to accommodate our energy. And so, talking about gender roles for 2 seconds here, but this is talking about everybody. Everybody is included, but I do just want to quickly touch on the masculine and the feminine. The males, like with toxic masculinity, they are raised in a society, in a world where they are taught that they have to be strong, where they have to be the provider, they have to be the protector, they have to be this, they have to be that, they have to be this big, dominating, powerful, overbearing energy. And because of that, there is this ridiculously high expectation to reach this overpowering energy. And this is unrealistic. Males are simply males, as females are simply females. We are just simply ourselves. There is no right or wrong on how to be ourselves, just being ourselves. And so we have this one size fits all concept for males that is completely unrealistic, with this lack of feeling emotions, this lack of expression, this overly like, you have to be the provider, you have to be the protector, you have to be the one who is strong. This is the idea. You know, you do sports, da 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 da. And because of this is a place of ego. And so these guys have this ridiculously high expectation of what the ego should be. And so they're constantly trying to catch up, they're constantly trying to fill up this void of being that thing. And to do that, they find in the feminine an accommodating energy. And this is where the inferiority complex comes from. This is where the superiority complex comes from. This is where sexism comes from. Because there's this one idea of what guys are supposed to be, and then we have the females who, because we're always talking about being attractive to each other, the female, especially the like straight cis females who are wanting a straight cis male, they have to accommodate their energy. And so we have the males where it's constantly powering and powering and powering. No matter how hard they try, they cannot reach this expectation. We have the females where we are expected to dim ourselves, to make ourselves smaller in order to accommodate this energy. So for us, what's attractive is being fragile, being submissive. We are literally taught to be submissive. We are literally taught to hide who we are, just as they are, but in a completely different way. And so being attractive has nothing to do with being attractive. Being attractive has nothing to do with beauty. It has nothing to do with worth. It has nothing to do with being likable in terms of like your true likableness. And it has everything to do with being comfortable for the other person. It has everything to do with accommodating that person's energy. So because we are taught to be small, they are taught to be big. And so we look for big and they look for small. And this is why this has continued on for so long. But now people are starting to realize that actually this is an unhappy system, and a lot of people end up, because of, for example, we have toxic masculinity, we have the idea that males have to reach this ridiculous expectation. They're not allowed to express their emotions. Emotional suppression leads to anger, it leads to violence, it can even lead to sexual violence, domestic violence, all kinds of things, because there is this concept that they have to reach something that they are unable to reach. They're constantly trying to fill this void, trying to seek this power that they are told they're supposed to have. And so there is this ridiculous need for control. And then the female is taught that they have to be submissive, that they need a protector, that they need somebody to look after them, that they are powerless. And however, people are starting to realize that this is an extremely damaging and extremely unhappy cycle, a very unbalanced, distorted energy. Look at this. This is not balanced at all. We want this, but we've got this. And so being attractive has absolutely nothing to do with being valuable and everything to do with being comfortable and accommodating. And so when you're asking yourself, when I used to ask myself, does somebody find this attractive about me? That used to matter. If so, the biggest compliment used to be, wow, you were so attractive, or you were so, like, your wife material. I mean, what does that even mean? I don't want to be wife material. I want to be Stella material. I don't want to be somebody that someone looks at and goes like, wow, I want to date her. I want to be somebody that somebody looks at and goes like, wow, she's so fucking comfortable in who she is. I want to be like that. Not like her, because I don't want to be like anybody but my fucking self. It's turned into a bit of a rant. Oh well. And so yeah, this realization that being attractive has nothing to do with being attractive and everything to do, or well, it is to do with being attractive. It's to do with attracting the energy that accommodates. And so when you're coming from this balanced energy of security and self-assurance and self, this is what being attractive looks like. But right now, a lot of it is this. The guidelines to being attractive is this. And so what I wanted to say is, for example, and I'm going to talk about me, and I'm a female, and so I'm talking particularly about being taught how to be submissive. One of the biggest things that I had to learn about in life was self-love, because we, as a collective, are taught that self-love is a bad thing. How weird is that statement? Self-love is bad. It is better to accommodate other people's energy. It is better to put other people first. It is better to be selfless and to prioritize the world around you. And do you know why? Do you know why we are taught this? Because this is easy to control and this feels safe. And like I said, people don't like to be triggered. And so what they find attractive is somebody who accommodates, somebody who is easy to be around, who is easy to control. They trust exactly. The outcome is predictable because the situation is controllable. This is what they are looking for because they don't feel safe in who they are because they're not being themselves. And so we, with self-love, are taught that it's a bad thing. We are supposed to accommodate. We are supposed to think about, think, oh, if I talk about this, how are they going to feel? And the thing is, I get it. I do. It's nice to be considerate. But this is a different word to accommodating. Humble is different to modest. And selfless doesn't exist. You don't want to be selfless. The definition of selfless, the two words combined, self-less, lack of self. You literally have no regard or concept of yourself when you are selfless. And this is what is celebrated. And so as a female who has been an incredibly selfless person at one time, the biggest people pleaser, the biggest pushover, everybody could take advantage of me. I was the butt of all jokes because I was so easy to be made fun of, because I was so willing to just accept whatever was thrown at me and go, yep, this is what I deserve. I had no recognition that I could love myself, and I actually thought that loving yourself was bad. I actually thought that people who are confident in themselves are arrogant or a bitch. or whatever it is. Can you believe that we live in a society where if I say, wow, I look pretty today, I am immediately perceived to be stuck up? We live in a society where if somebody, like, if I speak my mind and somebody doesn't like what they hear, I'm the problem. Whereas all I'm doing is saying what I'm thinking. It has nothing to do with anybody else. Like, again, of course, when there is all this judgment, and if the words that I'm saying are harmful, this is a bit of a different story. But if I'm just saying something like, if I'm just, let's just say I have a loud personality. I do have a loud personality. I don't dim my light to fit in anymore. And because of that, I can be kind of outrageously a big presence. But there's nothing to be ashamed of. There is nothing bad in that. And I shouldn't have to hide who I am in order for other people to feel comfortable, because the truth is there is enough space on this planet for everybody to be themselves. We should love ourselves. This is beautiful. And we live in a society where modest is celebrated, where selfless is celebrated, where being a victim, being powerless is celebrated, it is revered, it is honored and put on a pedestal, and being empowered and being strong and being confident in who you are and being self-assured and selfish, which by the way is not a bad thing. Selfish as in like putting yourself first, prioritizing yourself, caring about yourself. This is bad. And because of this, we have this whole idea of what is attractive in society, and it has nothing to do with value or attraction and everything to do with easiness and accommodation and control. And then we have an entire society built on these guidelines. We have little girls and guys and little people looking at this and believing that this is what makes them attractive and this is what makes them valuable. We have this incredibly strong and potent and honestly ingenious system of control and keeping people under this idea of what they should be. And the minute that we break out of that, we are no longer able to be controlled. The minute that we empower ourselves and start to be ourselves, we can't be controlled anymore. And because of this seems scary and dangerous, but it's not. We're not supposed to be controlled. We're not supposed to be one size fits all. We are all beautiful and unique and individual beings, and that is how we are supposed to live. We're not supposed to do things that make us unhappy. We're not supposed to do things that feel bad. That's not why we're here. We're to be ourselves. That's why we're here. We're here. We're here to live a beautiful, love-filled life, being ourselves, shining our light, and lifting each other up. And it's time that we stopped listening to what society tells us to do and started listening to our hearts and what we want to be doing. Stop focusing on what makes us attractive, what other people are gonna like, and start thinking about what you like about yourself, what you want to be about yourself. Who cares what anybody else is doing? That has nothing to do with you. Who cares what kind of place they are living in or where they come from or how they are behaving? That has nothing to do with you. And I implore you, if you find yourself triggered or you find yourself judging somebody, if you find yourself judging me, which is totally, utterly fine, ask yourself why. What is it that you find about this person or this situation or this thing that you don't like? And why don't you like it? Where is this coming from? And don't just stop it because she's a bitch or because she's annoying. Why is she annoying? Why is he annoying? Why are they triggering you the way that they are triggering you? What is it trying to tell you about yourself? What is it trying to make you aware of within yourself? It is okay, and I just cannot stress this enough. It is okay to want control. It is okay to judge. We are human, and when we are wounded, and when we are scared, and when we feel unsafe, we create defense mechanisms in ourselves to help protect us in that situation. So there is no shame, there is no judgment, there is no negativity in this stuff, but this holds you back from being able to be your true self. So asking yourself why and shining light on this judgment, on shining light on this triggering, and finding out where it comes from, this is how you can truly learn how to be an empowered and embodied version of yourself. The one that truly makes you happy, not the one that you think other people want you to be, because who gives two flying fucks what they want when it's your life, when you live with yourself 24/7, not them, you. And again, who cares what they're doing? You don't live with them. You're not them. It doesn't matter. Focus on you. See what makes you happy. Who cares what they think about you, and who cares what they are doing? Like, don't get me wrong, of course, this is not about like being like activism. Like, of course, like we should stand up for what we believe in. But if you just see somebody doing something and you're like, well, that's strange. Why do you think that? Ask yourself why, and realize that actually what they do is none of our business. And I'm not saying this in like it's none of your business, don't butt in. It's quite literally has nothing to do with your journey. Or it might, but the only thing it has to do is to reflect something within yourself. So yeah, how can you bring it back to you? When we are all here to support each other, to love each other, and we can all do that if we just allow ourselves to. How can you bring it back to you? Stop worrying about what other people think. Stop worrying about what other people are doing. Because we can't control them. And trust me, you don't actually want to. It's a bloody boring life to control everything in your life. And we're not supposed to. And the control comes from a place of fear, a place of wanting to be safe. So how can you learn about yourself? How can you create a space within yourself that feels safe so that you no longer need to control others? So that you no longer feel the need to be controlled. You know, this talk is scaring me because I'm putting out some pretty controversial ideas right now. And until recently, I was very much careful about the opinions I put out into the world. I was so scared of being perceived as arrogant or, I don't know, just, I'm not even sure anymore. I don't even know because I'm so sure in who I am and I'm so sure in what I believe in that I'm not sure what I was afraid of being perceived as. But yet I still feel nervous to put this out there for how people are going to respond. But I guess it's none of my business. People can respond and are going to respond how they want to respond. I'm just putting this out there because this helped me realize so much. And my channel is not here to be liked by everybody. My channel is not here to say everything is perfect. I'm here because I love the world and I love every single being within it. I also understand that the planet is a dual place of light and shadow. And in order to reach the light, in order to reach the healing and the happiness, we have to explore the shadow. So I'm not going to just sit here and tell you to ignore it. If there's something that you find that you don't like about yourself or that you don't like that you do, explore it. Absolutely. Don't worry about what people think. Don't accommodate yourself for other people. You deserve to shine. You deserve to live your life as you want to live it. You are so beautiful. So insanely beautiful. So insanely radiant, vibrant. And there's a very genderless adjectives here. Your soul, who you truly are, is magnificent. There is nothing like you in this entire universe. It's spectacular. So why on earth would you want to hide that to accommodate for somebody else who is unable to be themselves and to be exactly like everybody else in a one-size-fits-all mold, when you can be your spectacular, radiant, beautiful, authentic, individual, unique self? Because you are one of a kind. You're not even one in a million. You are the only one in the entire universe. You are beautiful. And so the reason I'm even talking about this and sharing this is not because I'm angry. It's not because I want to skite about how far I've come. And anyway, I'm not skiting. I'm proudly acknowledging the journey that I've been on and sharing it with you all so that you know that I understand what I like. I've been there. And yeah, it's okay. But no, this is not why I'm on here. Like, yes, I want to share myself with you. Yes, I want to be passionate and talk about what I believe in freely and openly and share what I learn with each and every one of you. But also, I just so desperately want you to see how incredible you are and how deserving you are of being yourself and of loving yourself, and how you don't have to accommodate or pretend you are anything but yourself. And there is no shame, there is no negativity in loving yourself, and there is no negativity in being whoever you are, regardless of your gender, regardless of your age, regardless of all of that. Your soul's desire, your heart, your truth is beautiful. And that is what is attractive. I love you all so much. Thank you so, so much for sticking with me and listening to my rant and my story time and just being here with me today. Thank you all. I love you all so much.